Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Bengal podcast with yours truly, Solomon Wilcots, right here on Valley Sports, Ohio. And right now, we have a very special guest, former Pittsburgh Steelers running back and ESPN analyst, and my very good friend, Mr. Merril Hoge, joining us on the Believe in Bengal podcast. Haji, how you doing, my friend?
Well, I'm good now that I finally made the podcast, brother. I'm glad
I know, man. You know how it is. When we join those two worlds, right? The Bengals world, the Steelers world, things can get a little rocky, but hey, we know what it's all about, playing for these organizations, particularly in the AFC North. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. What I wanted to do is kind of talk with you just about Joe Burrow and the kind of player he is, the kind of young man he is. And listen, there can be this sense that all is lost when you lose a player like that. But first, I want to start with a player who is so determined to be there for his team that he's willing to play through injury. He's willing to risk it all and play for his team. And so it lends to people sort of questioning the organization. What did they know? What did they not know? But you and I both know most players are that way. They want to be there for their team, and they're going to push through a lot of maybe the barriers that maybe suggest that maybe they should give it a second thought.
Well, Solly, this game is it's a tough game for tough people. I say that no matter what level of football I coach at, it's a tough game for tough people. But it's also an intelligent game for smart people. And I can't do a lot with tough and stupid, but I can do a lot with really tough and smart. Now, that being said, listen, I play in my career. I could start from here and go to my toes. I mean, I've played with about everything known to mankind: broken bones, separated shoulders, broken ribs, separated rib cartilage, fractured foot, broken fingers, fibula broken, you name it. That's part of the nature of that game. And I remember Dan Marino blew out his Achilles against Cleveland. And I actually was next in line for the longest streak played in the NFL at that time, which was like 126 straight games. Now, wow. I'm not saying that. Okay, well, you just said, wow. Okay, see, that's the one thing, no matter where you play, people respect.
Yeah.
And, my point with that is, that's how, listen, Joe Burrow, we're going to get to what makes him so unique and special from a quarterback perspective. But to have the toughness from a quarterback's perspective, I mean, I would just tell you this. When you have that too, along with the skill set we'll talk about later, man, you just win. You win your teammates over. You win fans over, quite honestly, too. And sometimes, what you do because you're into doing that, you plow through things you shouldn't plow through, and if you'd rest and recover, maybe you're out 2 weeks, but you're not out the entire year. Now, I'm not saying that's what would have happened in this particular injury. I'm just saying that, sometimes how we manage our injuries. I mean, I think they do a lot better job about that now, Solly, than they did back in the day too, quite honestly, from all aspects of injuries, not just the care of head trauma, but all aspects of injuries. I think that is invested in players, I mean, like the Bengals are experiencing this right now. Cleveland's experiencing this yet.
That's right.
Your backup is going to be, you can only afford a backup at a certain level because you got so much invested in your starter, and you pay that price if he goes down. So managing him and caring for him, is vital. And not just energy for the team. Listen, I live around here, so I'm feeling I just got off the plane, and there's a bunch of Bengal fans with me, and everybody's devastated, and everybody feels it, and I remember in Pittsburgh, so I'm gonna tell you this: win or lose, if I went through that Fort Pitt tunnel, I could feel it on Monday. I was like, man, this city just feels different when we lose versus when we win. So it's too bad too, because listen, even from just a overall, you want your best players playing. That's what makes the game great. You don't want your best players on the sideline. You want the best on there. That's what makes, football professional football grade is the best players being out there. You don't want them injured. And so, but it is unfortunate. I don't think Joe Burrow has been through an off season or a regular season without something.
Yeah.
That kid is.
I wanted to ask you that. What in your mind? Because I think he's a cut above. He's one of those rare special players at the quarterback position that a franchise could go 40, 50 years until you see another one. And that's why this is such a really wonderful time to be a Cincinnati Bengals fan. In your mind, as you watch Joe Burrow, and I know you and I get to talk about him a lot, but what are some of the things that makes him special?
Well, so I'll tell you this. I have a blank canvas when I get ready to look at a player. Even though I watch them on TV, bowl games, whatever. I know that will never tell me about the player. It's not until you're able to watch them on tape and really study them and evaluate them. But I tell you, the game or where he won me over, where he was going to be unique, that he was going to be special, is actually the championship game, national championship game, when Clemson rattled him. Yeah, when they rattled him, that offense rattled. And it might have been 2 series that they just, whatever they had done, those 4 weeks that they were off, they worked. And he shook that off and worked through that, and then just meticulously ripped them apart. And just his overall skill set was unique anyway. And I'll get to a kid who actually just came out this year that actually is the only time I've ever thought of Joe Burrow, was when this kid came out this year. But just how he processed things, how he played from the pocket, his accuracy, all those things that matter at our level are what wins championships or what makes you unique. That's when I knew whoever got him. And I remember Cincinnati. I mean, it's always nobody knew if Cincinnati was going to take him or not. I guarantee you, in that room, they're like, ain't nobody in this draft we're going to take other than Joe Burrow, because he, to your point, Solly, they do not come around all the time. And if there's one, there's only 32 teams. Right. So he can only play for one team. And if you're lucky enough to have one of them and you get them, you keep them, and they can offset a lot of deficiencies. John Elway was like that. John Elway was the guy who could offset deficiency. Peyton Manning offset deficiencies. Ben Roethlisberger offsets deficiencies. Joe Burrow offsets deficiencies, but helps you win a championship by their level of play.
Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals are going to meet Week 12 on Sunday. They've got 2 games coming up in the final 7 games that remain. The Pittsburgh Steelers right now 6-4. The Bengals are 5-5. Even though they're without Joe Burrow, I have told people don't despair. All you got to do, you got to win 5 games, 5 of the 7. I think 10 gets you in. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 4 games shy of that magical 10 win number. But their offense hasn't been clicking, Merril. They've been outgained in all 10 games they played this year. What I always tell people about the Pittsburgh Steelers, it doesn't have to look pretty to them. They don't care, but they're going to make you fight for every single game. And I think that's the character that many of us are looking to see from the Cincinnati Bengals, given the fact they'll be playing without Joe Burrow. This game sort of is an interesting matchup, I think, for those reasons.
Well, I'd agree. One thing Cincinnati had been doing, they did it on their Super Bowl run. In the last few years, they've had a great running game. I've always said that of all the phases that you can have to your team, defense has to have a lot of phases. They got to be able to stop the run, play pass, blitz. I mean, those are phases. Yeah. How good are they at all 3 of those phases? That makes the defense complicated to defend or attack. Offensively, how many phases do you have to your running attack? How many phases do you have to your passing attack? And how many of those phases do I have to try to stop? Well, if you have all those phases, it's going to be hard. You can't stop everything.
That's right.
You're going to have a problem. The Cincinnati Bengals, their running game has started to come around, and it's the one phase in football that does permeate to the defensive side of the ball, that does cross-pollinate into the other side of the ball and helps that other side of the ball. And I say that because the Steelers really started to get that going the last few weeks.
Yeah.
They have yet to complement it, though. And that's where, that's where the frustrations lie in Pittsburgh. That passing game has just not been able go in sync. Now, when it doesn't go in sync, one guy gets the blame, and that is their quarterback is taking all the heat. Now, he does have some things that he has to address. I think he rushes through his process a little quickly, pulls out, and gets rid of initial reads when he should stay with things. So he's rushing things for whatever reason. And he's missing throws that, he quite hasn't missed in the past.
Yeah.
Those things are his problems. That's not all the problems, though. They're breaking down up front. Listen, and now this happens to a lot of teams when you play Cleveland. Both tackles get absolutely destroyed. Back-to-back plays. We'll start the game. The left tackle. And tight end, make a mistake. And you just, so they have pass blocking issues. And then they have guys run the wrong routes. And everybody's running the same route. They ran like 6 screens. I think they executed 1 right. The timing of their – so, there's a whole host of things that are a problem there. And, going back to the Cincinnati thing, see, they've been running the football. Joe Mixon actually has run as good as I have seen him run since he come out of Oklahoma, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that right there is – see, this game's going to be another one of those fist fights at the 50.
Yeah.
Really, and then what quarterback can complement him? The one thing about you guys have 10 days, to get your quarterback ready. And shoot, the Cleveland kid, all he had to do is make a couple throws. You're going to keep it close. He made a couple throws on the last drive that got him in field goal range. And that's all you needed to do. And that's kind of how this game is going to be measured again, I think. How can really which offense can complement that defense and that running game, and what quarterback can complement it and do the few things right that puts you in a position to win the game at the end.
It'll be Jake Browning's first career start as an NFL quarterback. So it's going to be him and Kenny Pickett. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense, I think, have gone 58 consecutive games without gaining over 400 yards total offense. They've been outgained so far in every single game, all 10 games during the regular season, but they can run the ball. It seemed like they've discovered something unique in this running back, Jaylen Warren, and he and Najee Harris make for a very interesting, I think, dynamic in terms of a pair in one backfield. So I think this game is going to be really good. I want to talk to you about this. I can remember the New England Patriots. Tom Brady blows out his knee. First game of the year. They go the whole season without Tom Brady. They still go 11-5. I know there's been times when Aaron Rodgers, not just this year with the Jets, but when he was in Green Bay, he'd get hurt. He'd be out for the remainder of the season. That team still found a way to win and compete. Just come out and compete. Same with Ben in Pittsburgh. I remember him maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. After week 2, he was out for the whole season. That team still found a way to have a winning record. What is it about the really good teams that when they've lost their leader, their franchise quarterback, they still find a way to go out and compete?
Well, here's what you have just defined, and it is my belief: teams win championships. There's no quarterback that has ever played 60 minutes and won a championship. There's no defense that's played 60 minutes and won a championship. There's no offense that's just played 60 minutes. You have a team, and teams win championships. And that, to me, is oftentimes – it's forgotten in the media because, we focus on the Joe Burrows. Rightfully so, a skilled player. But if you peel that team apart, there's more layers than anybody ever mentions, as you know, because you've played on teams. You know the value of team. And teams win championships. And I don't think there's any greater I don't think you should ever not be echoing that as a coach. You highlight players, and there is a standard that you're trying to make everybody live up to, but everybody's important. Like all 53 guys are part of that team. And then when that 53rd guy is going to have to do something or be put in a position where he's going to have to be prepared, be smart, play smart, and do the right thing at that time. It could be downing a punt on the 1 yard line, timing it right, and all those things we work on and we miss all the time, but we timed it right on that one particular time. And they got to go 99 with 55 seconds left versus starting to the 25. It's just all those little things. I just think it's a great opportunity to reemphasize how important teams are. Teams win championships. I've always thought that. I've believed in that. I know that to be fact. No quarterback does it. No defense does it. Teams win it. So I think that's, to your point, is what happens with those teams, is that you realize that teams do it, and all those other phases. Now, I'll be highlighted a little more. We don't have maybe the elite guy that we have, like a Tom Brady or a Ben, or Joe Burrow. But that was still a pretty good football team. We just talked about some other guys that on your team that are that quarterback. Jay, he did not look bad. I always look for a guy's face. I'm like, he did not look overwhelmed. He didn't look stressed. And that was that has to be a comforting feeling for Bengal fans. He's not going to be Joe Burrow. That's a captain obvious, but the kid made based on the environment, the lack of reps that he's gotten. Mm-hmm. And now you got 10 days to prepare and get ready. And all you got to do is demonstrate a game plan against the Steelers. That's all you have to do, Sunday. You don't have to demonstrate a plan to win the entire league. No. You just got to beat the Steelers. That's what you have to do. That's what the Steelers, Cincinnati, whatever game plan we put together is good enough to beat Cincinnati. Whatever the Cincinnati Bengals put together is good enough to beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's about character, right? I think this is talk about adversity reveals character. I think football teams, when they lose their quarterback, that's when you find out who they really are. Are they going to tuck their tail and make excuses? Well, we lost our guy. Are they going to still come out and put up a fight? And I love those kind of football teams. And I think that's what at least I'm expecting from the Cincinnati Bengals team. Listen, you lose a lot when you lose a guy like Joe Burrow, but you still can come out and compete each and every week, and let's see where the chips fall. I've seen the really good teams in our league do that. I've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers do that. In fact, I've seen the Cleveland Browns just do it yesterday with a rookie quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He came out and he competed. So you can still be a playoff-worthy team after losing your quarterback. There is no doubt. I want to change it to one last question before we let you go, Merril. The AFC North is clearly a very special division for you and I. I played most of my career, when I played in Minnesota, most of my career in the AFC North, played for two teams in that division. You were a longtime Pittsburgh Steeler. You played in that division. And now, even as we look at it today, you could see the competitiveness in this division. All four teams play outside when the weather is inclement, when it's hot in September, when it's cold in November and December. What makes the AFC North a special division for you?
When I first got in the league, so actually the Bengals were the standard. You guys you guys went to the Super Bowl. I think you went to the Super Bowl the year. Was it 87 you guys went to the Super Bowl?
88.
Okay, 88. Okay,
year.
88. Yeah, the second year. But I remember, we'd get close. And actually, Jason Buck, if you remember him, he was a first round draft pick in 87.
From BYU, right?
Yeah, from BYU. And you guys were good. You had good players everywhere. But it was about our third year in 89, after 88, that we started chipping away. The game was much closer. Mm-hmm. You guys beat us at Cincinnati, but I remember the talk, even, because players say this too. It's like, you guys are getting so much better. You guys are much better than you were the year before. And, was knocking on the Super Bowl door, the AFC Championship games. Houston was supposed to always win it.
But no,
they were the most talented, but they found a way to implode at the end of the season. But that division, you talk about, it's kind of, when you say physical, well, listen, every game's physical. There's just some games, in those AFC Central, AFC North now, those games, if you could play in that division, you could play anywhere in football. There's nobody that you went outside that division and went, they beat them. That division beats themselves up more than we. No. If you could win that division, you had a shot. You had a shot to take it all the way to the top. And I learned that in 87 because I would consider we were probably the worst team in that division for like 3 years, or at least 2 years, until we started to we started to get better. So when I came in, you guys were the standards. Since Cleveland was the standard, and it was a very similar division. Every one of us was, I think, in a playoff. Well, I can't remember what year, but I know that the one year went to Houston for the wild card game, and I can't remember if Cleveland was in it that year too, or the next year. I think Cleveland and us were in it.
Cleveland was in it. We were in it. You guys were in it because you went out to Denver, beat the Broncos.
That's right.
So we were always sending about three teams to the playoffs almost every single year. And the Houston Oilers at that time, they were a talented team. You and I both. They had a Hall of Fame offensive line. They had a quarterback who would become a Hall of Famer, and Warren Moon. They had all these great running backs, even though they didn't use them, right? They were always in the run and shoot. So they had a Mike Rozier. They had an Alan Pinkett. They had Alonzo Highsmith. I mean, they had all these great running backs, but they were always trying to throw it, right? And we were thinking, these guys are not that smart because they have this great offensive line, all these great running backs, but they rather throw the ball. Okay.
Whatever. It helped us out.
Yep, sure did. But I appreciate that. The AFC North remains, I still think, a very tough and physical division. It is a competitive, highly contested division. And the quarterbacks, I mean, I know Deshaun Watson now is out for the year. Joe Burrow's out for the year. And I think that's the shame of it, because I think it was shaping up to be this highly competitive deal between all four teams, to be honest with you, as we were getting into late November and into the month of December. But hey, it's like the Pittsburgh Steelers, 3 coaches in 55, almost 60 years. The Pittsburgh Steelers, as you well know, they play the long game. I think the Cincinnati Bengals clearly have adopted that. I think the Cleveland Browns are trying to adopt that. We know what the Ravens are. They're good with that quarterback, Lamar Jackson, and a defense now that plays. It's not going anywhere. I think over the next few years, the AFC North is going to continue to be a hotly contested division. You got to be physical, you got to be smart, and you got to be tough. Merril Hoge, we appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you just got off an airplane and you stopped by to join us here on the Believe in Bengal podcast. All the best to you, my friend.
Anytime, Sally. Love you, brother. You're the best.
Right. Love you too. We'll be back with more. Thank you for joining us right here on the Believe in Bengal podcast on Bally Sports Ohio.
Make sure you check out Bet Online for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.